G'day guys. So the next thing I wanted to start working on was actually the building system. I wanted to start putting down walls and doors and stuff like that. But before we do that, I really need to put in some sort of UI system. So what I'll do today is I'll get started on that. I will lay out the bottom buttons. So that's going to be sort of one panel which will have buttons go across. I'll make the architect button, give us a sort of sub menu of buttons here in 2 columns. And then I'll probably only do the structure ones to start off with, but I'll make it so you can click this, it'll open this and give us these buttons. And from there, we can actually put in our different icons and then start on the building system. So let's go have a look at how we're going to do that. So I'll start by adding in my canvas layer. So that's my UI. I'll just rename that to UI. And I'll add a panel to hold my buttons along the bottom. And what I want to do is for the layout, I'm going to add some custom anchors. So my offsets all set to 0. And we're just going to have anchors at top, bottom, left, and right. The right's going to be 1. The bottom's going to be 1. And so all we want to do is for that top, let's make it 0.95 of the screen. So it's going to be 0.5 of the screen is going to be the height of my buttons. And in fact, I'm going to make a little script for my UI which holds some of these things for me. Button height equals 0.05. And I'm going to make this a tool because I want a lot of this stuff to be able to work in the editor. So let's make that a tool. Now this panel we've just put in, that's going to be panel bottom, I think we'll call it. And that's going to need a few buttons. So let's just add a button. And that one is my architect button. The next one is, I think, zone. Sorry, it's orders, zone. Sorry, no. I want to look at the bottom. It's architect, work, schedule, assign. Let's just do 4 for now. Architect, work, schedule, and assign. And I won't be setting up any of these buttons yet. I'm just going to do the architect one for now. But what I want to get is my layouts working. So I'm not going to sit and play with the layout of each of these. I'm going to write a script for my panel, which will handle all that for me. So let's make a script for the panel bottom. Once again, we need it to be tool. And we're going to have a link to the UI. And really just so I can get that button size. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it so I can reset these during the game. Sorry, I'm going to make it so I can press the button on the right and it will reset my UI layout for me. So it's going to be export var reset, which is a bool, and it's going to start off being false. And we're going to go process. And what we're going to do is if reset is active, we'll just set it to false. And let me show you what that one does. You have to reload the current project whenever you change anything with a tool. And I'll also just make it print reset here so we can see it happening. So now when I press on my panel bottom and I press my reset button here, it's resetting. All right, let's have it reset these buttons for me. So arrange buttons. Arrange buttons. And what we'll do is we'll get a list of the buttons. Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's make an actual array of buttons. Of our buttons equals a list. And I'll actually have a function to load them all. Load buttons. And what it will do is it won't just do this. It will go buttons equals an empty array, go for child in get children. And what we'll do is if that child is a button, then we'll add it to the list. So now when we, on a reset, we'll load those buttons and make sure that list of buttons is only buttons. So get children will screw me up if I put anything other than buttons in there. So what I want to do now is work out how many buttons there are in my row along the bottom of the screen and how much of the screen they take up. So div, it's going to be a float, and we go float 1 divided by the length of our button list. And so what that would do, if we've got 2 buttons in there, the width of a button will be 0.5, half the screen. So now we go for I in range the length of our buttons. So we're going to iterate through all our buttons. And just go buttons number I, and we'll set the anchor left is going to be div times I. And let's do the right. Let's do the top. Let's do the bottom. And so this second one is going to be the same thing, but it's the right side. So it's also going to have the width of 1 more division. For the top, we're going all the way to 1. For the bottom, for the top, we're being 0. For the bottom, we're being 1. And let's also just put in the anchor offsets. Offset bottom, and let's just set them all to 0 just to make sure. Top, left, right. So now when I run it, it should arrange all my buttons for me. Let's do it. Let's press the button. Bam. And I've got 1 button, 2 button, 3 buttons, 4 buttons. And if I ever add another buttons, you can see it's sort of off to the side there. As soon as I press that, now every button takes up a 5th. Let's just put in the names of those so it's easier to see them. I should have done that first. And assign, and I'll delete that one for now. All right, so now you would probably have it set so it runs this reset when the game starts or whenever you change the resolution of the screen. So it arranges that all for you. But of course, since I'm using anchors, I don't really have to change it and reset it on a resolution change. You can see it automatically scales for me. But of course, I don't do anything yet. So now let's work on the side panel that will come up here. I'm working on this one here. So let's make a new panel. I'm not going to make it a child of this lower panel. I'll make a new one. That's a panel, and let's call that panel architect. And so this one, once again, we're going to be doing the custom anchors. And I might just leave these fixed for now. No, let's code them in. So first of all, let's set all the offsets to 0. But let's put this in manually. So I'll make a script for this. All right, once again, make it a tool. And we'll have the resettable nature. So let's grab actually all of this. It's going to have buttons as well. So we'll pretty much have all the same stuff. Now, if I thought ahead, I could probably have these extend each other or do something like that, but I haven't planned that far ahead yet. So let's have that same load buttons one as well. I can't use the same arrange buttons. And the reason is that I'm going to have 2 columns of buttons here. So it's arranged slightly differently. And the first thing I want to do is actually arrange self. So its own anchor left, it's going to be 0. Its own anchor right, let's just make it 0.2 for now. Anchor top, let's make it half of the screen. No, actually, that's not what I want to do. What I want is for the anchor to be at the bottom, and the top will actually move based on how many buttons. So if there's 1 button, 1 or 2 buttons, I should say, because it's 2 columns. If it's 3 or 4, 5 or 6, 7 or 8. And of course, the anchor's moving, not this. So the anchor top we don't know, and the anchor bottom is actually going to be UI dot button height. So let's see what that gives us. It should give us everything except that top height. And let's also have it just reset these offsets as well. Okay, so now when I run this one and I reset it, oh, of course I need to, so I've just added this new tool. I need to reload the current project. So when I run this one now, oh, I've done some math wrong, you can see. It is doing something, but it's locking it to here. So I think oh, I know. It's this. So my anchor at the bottom should actually be 1 minus that, because it's the distance from the bottom. There we go. So now it's just the top that isn't getting done. So I can change this however I like. When I reset it, it'll just set it that and match whatever height. So the height we've got to work out. All right, so anchor top. First we need to know how many rows of buttons we're going to have. So let's rows equals, it'll be the length of buttons plus 1 divided by 2. So if we've got 4, we're going to have half of that many columns, or half of that many rows. So we've got 2 columns. And what I'll also do, var int column count equals 2. So now, instead of just writing 2's in here, I'll have it actually be what it should be. So then we go anchor top equals, so we go the anchor bottom, because we're going to work our way up from there, minus, anchor bottom minus the button height times the number of rows. And let's see if I've got that right. Int and nil. Oh, now what's happening there is I just added another thing here, and because of the way the tools work, I have to just reload this again. All right, so let's add some buttons into there. So this will be just checking it is going to be orders, zone, structure, production. Zone, structure, production. Of course, they all have to be a direct child of architect, and nothing on those is set. I just want to see if this is going to give me something that's about 2 buttons high. So it should be about this high now. And that looks right to me. Now we need to actually arrange the buttons, which is going to be similar to what we did before. Similar to what we did with this one, but a little bit different because we have to work them into columns. So the first thing is we need to know how many rows we have, the row count, and that's actually this one. I'll just steal that from up there. And then what we'll do is we'll go for I in range length of our buttons. So we'll link through all our buttons. And we need to know which column we're on at any given time. So column equals I mod column count. Then var the current row. So rows is how many rows we've got. Row is the current row equals I divide by column count. And then what I can do is just go buttons, number I, anchor, top. And the top is going to be the row multiplied by 1 divided by the number of rows. Anchor bottom is going to be 1 divided by the row count, the number of rows. And I'm wrapping them in a float here to make sure it doesn't do integer maths, which will round everything off. Let's see, it's going to be plus the row multiplied by 1 divided by the rows, the number of rows. I dot equal left is going to be the current column multiplied by 1 divided by column count. That's 1, not 12. This one's going to be 1 divided by the column count plus the current column multiplied by 1 divided by the column count. I think that's right. And once again, we'll just set all the offsets just in case they get changed. That looks right to me. Let's see if she works. So it should give me 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons. And if we write these in so it's easier to see, we've got orders, we've got zone, we've got structure, and we've got production. And then if we ever add in another button, whether it's in the editor or in code, and then we press it again, we get an extra row. And if we deleted those two, that'll always work correctly. All right. So now we've got all our buttons. We need to actually make them do stuff. All right, now for these buttons, I'm going to link them in code as well. So let's go back to our bottom panel. And what I'll do is I'll add my little func ready. And for this one, we'll just go load the buttons. And then we'll go for button in buttons. We'll go button.connect. We'll link when they are pressed to on button pressed. And we'll bind the button to that, the button itself. So here's what we do now. Let's just put it down here. Func on button pressed, which will receive a button, which is of a type a button. And I'll just show you what it does. When I press a button, it should just print the text of the button. Run that. And so architect, work, schedule, assign. So that's working fine. I'm just going to we're just going to delete this pawn so I don't get all his nonsense. And what I actually want this to do is open a submenu. And the menu is going to be decided by that text. Func open submenu, which is going to take the menu, which is a string, and I'll go for submenu in get parent.get children. So what I'm doing there, I'm grabbing the parent and then grabbing the children of that, so I'm getting all the panels. If submenu is not equal to self. So what I'm doing is I'm going to make it show and not show these other panels, but not self. I never want to hide this bottom one, so we're just ignoring our self. If the menu is submenu.name, so if the string that we get passed through here is the same as this one, then what we'll do is if that submenu is currently visible, we will set it to invisible, or else if it's, we'll set it to invisible, or else if it's not visible, we'll set it to visible. So when you press it once, it'll open it, press it the second time, it'll close it. And if it's not it, then we'll force this one to be invisible. Submenu dot set visible false. All right, I feel like I've done something wrong there, but let's give it a try. So the closing of it worked. Let's go, we're going print menu. All right, now since I'm working off the name, what I'm going to do is actually match this text here to this here. So I'm just going to call this one architect. And then that should make it work. So now we're calling things by their name. So I can turn architect, what? Oh, see how it's got an extra thing there? That's because in my architect button, I've actually got a line return there as well, which I always accidentally press enter when I type those in. There we go. And there's nothing attached to those ones. But if I created another panel here called work, it would open and close with this one. But you see when I open this one, press it again, it closes, or press any other, it closes as well. So now let's give these buttons a similar treatment. So we're going to do a really similar thing. So I'll steal these. Let's go to our architect and let's put in ready as well. Okay, so flag on, button pressed. And all I'm going to do is open up another panel here, which will hold all these little sub buttons here. So if you press orders, same panel, and then we'll populate these buttons here. So these buttons, I'll make them all by code. So architect, add a child node, let's make it a panel. Let's call it panel buildable things. And we'll just drag that across there. Oops, set all the offsets to 0. And that looks about right. This one, I'm not fussed about it being exactly right for now. All right, so that's going to hold all my buildables. So first I'll make it show this appears and disappears when I press the button. That'll be my sub menu basically. So I'm just copying my old code. So actually first what I want to do is make a little variable just to hold the thing I'm currently building. So current buildable, and we'll go if the menu equals the current buildable, then we'll find the child called panel buildable. As I'm reading that, I realize I spelled that wrong. And we'll just set that visibility to false and set the current buildable to a nothing. It's a string, by the way. Let's go and note that that is a string that equals nothing by default. Or else current buildable will equal the menu, so the button I've just pressed. And then we'll set that visibility to true. And then we'll go and do a, oops. Then we'll do a match on the menu. And if that equals structure, then we'll actually open up our particular menu. So if you open the structure, it'll grab the structure list. If you press production, the production list. But for now, we're just putting in the structure list. Open structure list. I'll put that in a moment. And let's see if this works. So this should just open and close that panel for now. Oh, I accidentally put that in there. All right. I've added this new thing, but I'm not using it here, so it's fine. I was going to say that I had to reload everything because it's a tool. All right. Yeah, so structure opens and closes that. Yeah, so whenever I'm clicking it, it should be, so I should make that hidden by default is the only thing I haven't done. So let's just make that hidden. And actually let's make this one hidden as well. And I'll add code to do that later. So when I press work, nothing happens. I'm not coded, but architect will open up this one and close it open. If I press orders or zone or structure or productions, it should be giving me the different list. But you see the only thing that works right now is open structure list. Good, so now I just have to code it to give me that list. And I think that'll be enough for today. Once I've got those buttons, next lesson, I'm a teacher, you can tell. In the next time I have a go at this, I'll actually make the buttons do something and have buildables. So what I need to do is close that, and we need to make a list of buttons, and I want to load them in code this time and make them square. So I won't do them in here at all this time. Let's see if I can manage to do it just in code. All right, so func load, this is architect, buildable menu. Now the first thing is I need to get that panel. And what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to delete all the buttons I've added. I haven't added any yet, but I'm still going to delete them. So for I in range panel buildable dot get child count. And what we'll do is we'll go through each of them and just panel buildable dot get child number I and just queue free. Now that will mean later on when I load different lists, it'll clear out the old ones first. So we won't be stacking button on button. Now let's see if I can get this in my mind. For I in range, I need the list of things. So let's just for now, buildables equals, and let's say we've got cancel, let's add a wall, let's add a door, one more, fence, I think was another one, and we'll actually grab from a list of stuff from the item manager later, but that's good for now. In range length of buildables. So we're going to make a new button. We're going to add that button to our panel buildable. We're going to set the text of that button to our buildables number I, so the current one, which will be a string. And now let's see, button size, it's going to be panel buildable size dot x divided by 20. So I'll make it a 20th of the left side of that panel to the right side, and we'll base everything off of that. So button dot position, it's going to be vector 2. So we're using no longer anchors, we're doing actual positions. Button size times I, panel buildable dot size dot y minus the button size. So the position is going to be that. The actual size is going to be button, it's going to be vector 2, and it's going to be button size by the button size. And I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger. And this is not a great way to do it. I should probably make a secondary font. Add theme font, what was it? Add theme font size override. And I'm just going to set the font size to something little, to 10. Just because the default text will be too big and it won't fit in these buttons. Vector 2. Add theme font size override. I think that might work. Let's give it a go. All right, so when I hit architect, I get this one. When I hit structures, I get my new buttons. All right, so if I add more to the list, I'll get more. Let's try it. And another thing, which is probably too big. It'll probably wrap around and do something bad. But now I can open up structure and I've got my list of things. So you'll see it'll stretch automatically, which I don't really want. I want them square. Now, all the things like having the gap around that's themes. You'll do that in the theme and you'll add the little margins and things like that later. You'll make the buttons pretty later. For now, I really just wanted to be able to actually build stuff. So now I can play my game and I can actually go architect, wall. And when I do the build system, I'll be able to draw out the order for the walls and then my guys will come and build it. So in the next time I'm doing this, I can work out that. And then I can work out the other stuff later. But I think I've got a good basis for a... that needs to reset as well. There's a few little things that might be tweaked in this, but I think this is a great little start to a UI that we can expand on later. But oh man, UIs wreck me. I hope you guys got something out of that. I'm going to leave it there for today. Once again, if you can chuck us a couple of bucks downstairs in the Patreon, that would be magnificent. But otherwise, have a great day, guys. See you later.